Hello, party people. Oh. If you're watching, I thank you for at least clicking the video. This is actually the third time now I'm recording this. Fuck. The first time I recorded last week, and I recorded in 4K on this nice 4K camera I bought. It's not that nice. It's like $150, so get what you pay for probably. But I have the unfortunate task of trying to get it to work on shitty Adobe Premiere Elements, and the playback was all stuttery, and I worked for hours trying to solve the problem. I realized it's probably just easier to record in 1080p, 120 frames per second. So if you're watching this, that means I got it to work on the stupid editor. I guess if you're not watching it, then I didn't. So, I haven't been drinking yet, which is also aggravating me. But today's booze of the day. Because with book recommendations, why not throw a quick booze recommendation, and maybe one day we'll get a sponsor. Today, we are drinking delicious. You see that? Ooh, yeah. This wonderful Jameson Cold Brew Edition whiskey. Tastes just like a cold brew coffee. It's amazing. I really like it. I've had many flavored whiskeys in the past, and for the most part, I generally do not care for them. Too sweet, or just overly flavored, or just too fake chemically tasting. But this Jameson is also delightful. So pick up a bottle at your, I don't know, whatever fucking local liquor store you guys have. I don't know, if you live in Pennsylvania, you gotta go to the state store, which is very stupid. But if you live in normal states, you could probably get it at a gas station or something. If they have it, I guess. Seeing as how this is the third time I had to record this stupid video, I'm already aggravated. But I would like to still give you my book recommendation. Also, once again, we're at the DPW studios here. In the future, I'll probably switch up the aesthetic here. Not of the studio, but of where I record. Maybe find something cooler background. I got a bookshelf with books, or maybe I'll just green screen it, blue screen it, whatever screen you use, and superimpose some cool shit. I also plan on, judging by what I can see from the little viewfinder here, I would like to get one of those nice light rings that go around instead of this awful fluorescent tube lighting I have in the studio that literally blacks out half of my face, shrouds me in shadows like the Phantom of the Opera here. Though I may be ghoulish, I don't think I'm that ghoulish where I need half of my face blotted out. Now I do want to jump into these book recommendations. Like I said, I just recorded this, and why this is the third time? The first time obviously failed last week because of the editing situation. The second time, which I just got done recording, realized I did not turn on the microphone that's on top of the camera. So when I went for the playback, there was no sound. So I was just fucking yapping in the wind with nobody to hear me. If a drunken DPW host speaks for many minutes and no one's around to hear them, does it make a sound? Jumping into these book recommendations, I made a quick list on this giant legal pad. First up, I put these out of order because I'm stupid, so I will put them in order now. First up, you can find all these actually on our podcast, so I will be not just shouting out the podcast, the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I don't know why I looked over there. I just often looking at Spencer, who's actually more over here, but he's not here today, so. But, so like I said, you could follow the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast on whatever podcast app you can find us on, which is probably all of them, and Spotify and all that shit. Also, if you're on, watching this, you're probably watching on YouTube, which means that you can find our podcast because there's most of our videos are the podcast. Not videos of the podcast, just the audio. I know that makes some of you mad because you want to be able to watch our horrible, hideous, slack-jawed faces as we talk, but that's, you don't really need that. It's bad enough I'm here now looking at you, you looking at me. I'm sure, I don't know. But anyway, first up on our list here, this series was written by my brother from an English mother, Mr. Matt Holland. Hopefully one day he becomes Sir Matt Holland, because, deserves it, right? Good book. He's an indie author out of England somewhere. Liverpool, maybe? Not Newcastle. I forget. You could go on his Twitter, which I don't. I don't know if it's Matt Holland or I don't fucking know. I'm sure if he watches this, he'll holler at me, maybe. But anyway, the Hair of the Dog trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. I think there's 3 books. I'll say series just in case he's written another one or has written another one since I last checked. I only read the first. We only read the first book. It was actually, according to these notes, our book of the month number 1. Holy shit, he was our introduction to the book of the month. And I do remember how I came in contact with this fine gentleman. I did a shout-out on Twitter asking for, specifically indie authors, I believe, to submit their book synopsis and their, links to their book. And we were going to pick one to kick off our whole book of the month campaign or whatever we were doing. And we found his synopsis to be the best. And you know what? We've struck out many times with indie authors that we ended up just not covering their book on the podcast because I'd rather not put a negative light on anybody's work if I don't have to. But Mr. Matt Holland had an excellent book. I don't know if it's his debut novel, but it was my first time reading his work. Hair of the Dog, the first one. Sci-fi book set on some other planet. I think it's called like the Goliath trilogy or series or something along those lines. But like I said, since you can actually check out our full review on the podcast and stuff, I'm not going to go into the synopsis and everything. But I will tell you, great protagonist for one. Couple protagonists actually, but the main one, a very badass lady, and badass in like a Ellen Ripley, but also very intelligent and very funny, very witty. I really, really enjoyed this character. And again, she kicked ass, but it didn't feel forced. Like I said, because I use Ellen Ripley because that's, in my opinion, when I think of a badass female protagonist, I think of Ellen Ripley because it's not like how some movies and fiction kind of force a strong woman character on you, and the only way they could do that is by making it so she kicks a lot of ass. Like, when you watch like Ellen Ripley on Alien, it's just like, that's who she is. Or same with Terminator with Sarah Connor. Like, that's a badass lady, but she has motivations and reasons why she's badass. Very similar with Matt Holland's book. Wildly funny. Really enjoyed it thoroughly. And I recommend anybody check it out. There's drinking, there's fighting, there's fucking shootouts. There's all kinds of shit. Everything you can want. And again, if you're a sci-fi fan too, that'll be also right up your alley. Spaceships and all that. All that noise. Like I said, since I recorded this and I fucking failed, I'm going to speed through this a little faster. I'm sure you won't mind. Wonderful 7 people watching this probably. Next up on our list, this was actually our Book of the Month 2. And if you look these up on wherever you're looking them up, it's just DPW Podcast. BOTM, Book of the Month, and then the number. So Book of the Month number 2 was The Black by Cooley. This was a very interesting book, and again, this is also a series. We only read the first one, but I would like to read the rest of them at some point. This is a tech horror thriller, actually? Yeah, I would say, because it's like a Cthulhu type of monster. That's what drew me in. I actually don't like tech thrillers. Obviously I'm a big horror fan, but I don't like tech thrillers or hard sci-fi. And this story is set on an oil well in the middle of the ocean. So kind of a cool setting, but I don't really give a shit about oil wells. And like I said, I'm not a tech guy or a sci-fi nerd, like a hard sci-fi nerd. So I was kind of wary going into this thinking like, I don't know how much I would enjoy it just because of those aspects, like the monster stuff. But this wasn't even like a main focus on the monster. And Cooley I found just because I've been listening to the Dead Robots podcast. It's like one of the top writing podcasts out there. I've been listening to that since day one. I guess not day one because they came out like 2006 or something. But I listened to like almost all the episodes starting at number 1 years ago when I found them. But Cooley, he's a co-host on there. And I think he actually does all the editing and all that stuff. So highly recommend that podcast too, especially if you're a writer or just a fan of sci-fi and stuff. They do cover that stuff very well. And Paul also writes horror, I believe, which I haven't read, but I heard it's very well done. But going back to the Black series, this first book has a lot of very, again, we can listen to our coverage of this, but very relatable characters. Very funny. This is a pretty humorous book for the subject matter. And what I liked about it is, being a guy who doesn't like tech stuff, and especially this, which describes oil wells a lot and how they work and all this stuff. I was not at all bored by that stuff. I actually found it very entertaining, and Paul did an amazing job of telling you how this stuff works without making it boring or anything. He just really good tech writer, I guess. I mean, I can't compare because I don't read a lot of tech, hard tech stuff or sci-fi, hard sci-fi stuff. But I mean, if they were written in the way this was, I would actually probably be down for it because you learn things, but in a fun manner, and it's just really entertaining, and it actually is pertinent to the story. Whereas a lot of writers, I feel, would probably throw the tech stuff in there, but it doesn't actually have anything. Like it would slow down the story or bog it down just so they could have that tech gobbledygook. But not this story. This was very well written. Next up, now, you know what, I'll skip this one and go to the other one first. This is not a series, but this is probably the most popular book on this list because not only is it from a major publisher, but I want to say this might have been a bestseller. If not, it really should be. The Hike by Drew Magary. You could find this in our Book of the Month 6, where we covered this book. It was, wow, man. This fucking thing was a trip. It kind of plays like a video game, like when you're reading it. It's like this crazy adventure this guy goes on, and has elements of horror, sci-fi, fantasy. It has everything you could want. It's got giants, fucking Dracula-like creatures, weird monsters, fucking 1400 conquistador, I can't say it. Spaniards. Spanish adventurers. It has, a wild, asshole, snarky, hilarious talking crab, blue crab, dog-faced guys, like they run around with dog faces. I don't know. It's crazy. But one of the funniest books I've read in a long time. Thoroughly enjoyable. Every chapter ends on like a cliffhanger. It's a page, like one of those, what they call, a page turner. Like you just can't stop reading the damn thing. It's I think I probably read this book faster than I've read most books. Not just because it was, like 200-300 pages or whatever, but just because it's so fun. And also, one of the most satisfying endings to a novel I've read in 4 or 5 years probably. Like this is one of the best endings I've ever read in a book. It wrapped everything up nicely. It was really cool. Full circle with the story. I really, really, really liked it. So highly recommend The Hike by Drew Magary. Because if you read like reviews on Goodreads, you're gonna read some negative reviews about how like, it could have been written by a kindergartner. It's just a bunch of nonsense. I could see that critique, but I thought it was really fun. I don't think it was nonsensical by any means. Finally on this list, not a very deep list here. But by the way, I'm probably gonna do maybe I'll do like a recommendations every month, but it would only be like 1 or 2 books, very short videos. Just doing a little more now because I've never, we've never done this on here. But next up is the Inspector Iwata series by Nicolás Obregón. There's 3 books in this, I believe, at the moment. I read the first 2. The first one, Blue Light Yokohama, is wonderful. What I liked about Nicolás Obregón and his writing style is it gives more of a literary flair. It's very poetic, rich in language, and it's just, it's more the type of book I go for normally, like the writing style, because I read a lot of Japanese fiction. And I actually found this book, Blue Light Yokohama specifically, because I was searching for Japanese noir fiction. I wanted to get into that genre, and this popped up, which is kind of funny because Nicolás Obregón is not Japanese, and as far as I know, this book isn't written in Japanese. Like, I don't know if there's a Japanese edition, and there might be now, but I don't believe when that list was created there was a Japanese edition of the book, so it wasn't like it was released in Japan first that I know of. I mean, I could be wrong, but anyway, the book, it deals with serial killers, cult members, just crazy story, from the get-go, very imaginative characters. But what I like about the protagonist, Inspector Kosuke Iwata, he's kind of like, he's supposed to be born in Japan, but he lived in America for a while, went to school here, goes back to Tokyo, so it's set in Tokyo. What I really liked about the character was he is not like a Sam Spade or a Philip Morrow, where he always has the answers, he's badass, gets all the broads or the dames and all that shit. No, he's kind of a broken man. And you get the sense from the get-go that he's just kind of doing, trying to solve the main murder here. He's trying to solve the murder almost like because he's trying to escape his life, and he just throws himself into this work, and he doesn't really seem to care about what happens to him. He gets hurt, beat up, killed, and he does get the shit beat out of him for most of this book. Same with the second book, Sins of Scarlet, which is set in LA. I'll get to that in a minute. But the character of Iwata is great because he's a mystery too. Whereas, because it's crime noir, kind of a crime thriller, it's a mystery that does get solved by the end of the book. But the character of Kosuke Iwata, he's a mystery in that you don't know his backstory. You don't necessarily know his motivations or why he does what he does until the end of the book as well. There's a lot of flashbacks and memories and different things. So it's multiple stories being told at once that coincide with the main story. And the Inspector Iwata, you unravel his story like a mystery as you unravel the mystery of the main story. So it's really fun in that regard, very creative, super enjoyable, and if you want to hear more about that, we actually did not cover the book for the podcast, but we sat down with Nicolás Obregón, the author, on DPW podcast episode number 55. I think it's titled something along the lines like Writing Talk or Shop Talk with Nicolás Obregón. So check that out. We did talk about the book and his second book and what he's currently writing, but we talk shop. We talk about the writing process and how he goes about it. Very, very good podcast. One of my favorite ones we've done on here. So definitely highly recommend checking that out too, as well as the book. And then the sequel, which I read, Sins of Scarlet, that was set in L.A., which actually kind of gives you a throwback to like The Big Sleep. So you get a gritty, noir L.A. feel, which is cool. And then what I liked about this book was a lot of it's also set in Mexico. Like Inspector Iwata goes to Mexico. So you get a lot of Spanish flair to this book, because Nicolás Obregón, I believe, was born in Spain. I know he's a fluent Spanish speaker. So that's really fun. And then that book deals with a lot of like transgendered issues, immigration, a lot of heavy themes, and once again, lots of murder. Wouldn't be a detective story without lots of murder and whodunit and all this stuff. So that was also excellent. I might have. It's a toss up because I love like Tokyo fiction and stuff. So I can't say I enjoyed that more than Blue Light Yokohama, but at the very least it's tied. Like I really enjoyed those. And then the third one, let me see if I can find the name here because it's unknown something. Because I did not read the third one yet, which it's on my list. I wasn't able to get to it just with my reading schedule. No, not Nicholas Sparks. I'm not give a shiza about Nicholas Sparks. Maybe we'll cover the Notebook. We were talking about doing a romance book on here sometime, so maybe we'll do the Notebook or something. Unknown Male. That's as far as I know, the finale of the Iwata trilogy. Like I said, I don't believe Nicholas has any plans on continuing that series. Like I said, I didn't even read the third one yet, so I don't know how that ends. But Inspector Iwata goes back to Tokyo. And I know Nicholas was kind of pissed off because the pandemic, as we all are, but it hit him specifically, or rather, should I say, in a more awkward manner, in that his book is set during the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan, and obviously that did not happen. They suspended the Olympics and moved them to, at the earliest, 2021 in Tokyo. So that kind of threw off his book, which was already completed before any of this fucking bullshit pandemic nonsense happened. So, anyway, highly getting off topic. I highly recommend checking out that series as well. And that's everything I had down for these recommendations. I mean, there's some other things I could recommend. Ray Wenck's Tower of the Dead. That's a series. I only read the first book, which I think that was on our book of the month, maybe 3 or 4. I think we only have 6 book of the month, so it has to be 3, 4, or 5, obviously. That's a zombie story. That was the first zombie story we covered. I've never read actual zombie fiction in prose form, like a novel. So that was entertaining. That was like a non-stop action adventure craziness. So if you like zombie stuff, I guess I would recommend that as well. I enjoyed the read a lot more than I thought I was going to. I think I gave it we did whiskey shot reviews, out of fucking 5 whiskey shots on the podcast. We'll, down some whiskey. So I think we gave it 4 out of 5. It was really fun. It was a quick read. I would like to. I actually have the second one in the series, Island of the Dead, I believe. So I'll be getting to that eventually. Also, my first book review on here, I have this pulp book by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, I believe. Yes. Spencer let me borrow this bad boy, so I will be checking this out. This is a graphic novel. So I might do that, because that'll be a short one. I'm currently reading Coin Locker Babies by Ryu Murakami. I'm really enjoying that one. It's like this, because I wanted something gritty and, the seedy underbelly of society. And this one reminds you of like a fucking like a 70s Hell's Kitchen, New York, but it's set in Tokyo. And it paints Japan in a vastly different light than I've ever seen it painted in a book. So I'm really enjoying it. It's very disturbing. That's by Ryu Murakami, not Haruki Murakami, which, if you listen to the podcast, I always talk about Haruki Murakami, because I read most of his books. This is my first Ryu Murakami. And as I said before, as far as I know, if you have Haruki Murakami as the Beatles, Ryu Murakami would be the Rolling Stones. So I'm really enjoying that, so I'll probably be covering that on the podcast. Also, I have a couple reads here that we'll probably be doing for the winter. I don't think I'll be covering these on the podcast because probably won't be covering these on anything, actually. I'm just going to be reading these. There's no real point, as these are classics that everyone's read. I don't think it's really pertinent for me to get into classic literature so much. Granted, our last book of the month, Bookcast series, which was like 5 volumes. We did all Halloween, like all October long for Halloween, was Dracula. So, I mean, we're going to continue to do things like that in the future, but not like novels like this. I read this when I was a kid, but I haven't read it since, so I'm probably going to reread it. Did not have a physical copy. 1984 by George Orwell. Obviously that's one of the greatest novels of all time, apparently, so I should probably reread that and remember what happened. Because, like I said, a lot of books like Moby Dick and stuff I read when I was a kid, and especially like Moby Dick, you can't grasp that kind of book, unless you're really smart, which I was not. So you can't really, the comprehension was not there to grasp like Moby Dick or 1984. The retention definitely wasn't there, because I don't remember most of the book. Moby Dick I reread recently, and if you listen to the podcast, I've ranted many a times about that. This one I actually read just like a year or two ago. I just wanted a physical copy. The Great Gatsby, one of the greatest covers of all time, by the way. There we go. Spencer is supposed to read this sometime, so I'm sure he'll be borrowing this. Not a long read. This one I'll actually be tackling very soon. As you all know, other than the shitty King Arthur stuff we did recently, I'm a huge fan of John Steinbeck. I've liked everything else but that King Arthur thing that I've read of his. The Winter of Our Discontent. I will be checking that out. And I probably won't do a review on it, but I might actually cover that on here just because I'm a big Steinbeck fan. And I'm sure a lot of you younger folks might not have read Steinbeck. You might know Mice and Men or Grapes of Wrath, but there's a lot of Steinbeck I would recommend, and I think it would be good for any generation to read. I've never, like I said, other than that King Arthur, which was technically a unfinished first draft, I've liked everything John Steinbeck's done. So that's about all I can say. I'm trying to look around. I got a lot of books to cover. But for the podcast, I don't know what our next one is. Yes, I do. Casino Royale. We're going to be doing a book of the month on Casino Royale because Ash from the Ear Read This podcast, which I highly recommend if you like classic literature, more specifically things like Shakespeare, and I think he's done like Raymond Chandler and stuff too. We were going to do like a compare and contrast between Raymond Chandler and Ian Fleming. I've read some James Bond when I was like a kid, like I was like 7 years old. Probably not the best stuff for a 7-year-old to be reading, with the misogyny and maybe racism. I don't know. I haven't read it. If it's like The Big Sleep, I'm sure there's racism. Definitely probably homophobia. But we will be reading Casino Royale because it's a quick read and covering that. So look out for that one. I'm hoping to just have this video out today so I don't have to fuck it with it anymore. But we'll see. I'm supposed to tell you to like and subscribe because that's what these people on this platform do, I guess. I don't actually watch book reviewers. I should watch more book vloggers. The problem is all the book vloggers, maybe because they're trying to be trendy and, have the young folks watch, they cover a lot of YA fiction. I don't read any YA fiction. So, yeah. Like I said, hopefully in the future videos I'll have better setting and fancy lighting. It's not awful like this. But we'll see. But thank you for watching. And until next time, stay classy, read books. I got this fancy remote for the clickety clack, so I'm living it up like a mofo. Also, drink that Jameson cold brew.